Hello and welcome to episode 8 of Anti-Doping Updates. This week we've got 3 good stories to talk about. First is a weightlifter who was sanctioned for possession of banned substances. Second, we have a tennis player who was sanctioned for using a unlabeled cream. And third, we have a cyclist who has a reduced and eliminated sanction based on a change to the code. All right, let's get started. The first story to talk about is Scott Hasaka. Scott is a weightlifter from the United States. He placed 5th in the 2014 National Championships in the 94 kilo weight class and 10th in 2015. Like all anti-doping associations, the U.S. Anti-Doping Association can conduct investigations into whether or not an individual has committed an anti-doping violation. USADA learned that Scott Hasaka had purchased a number of supplements from Performance Nutrition. I couldn't find any information on this website. It looks like it's now defunct, but it seems to be a website that sells banned substances, including growth hormones and peptides and a number of different things. But anyway, so USADA found that Scott had purchased the following items between October 2014 and April of 2015. The products include growth hormone factor 1, growth hormone release peptide 2, growth hormone release peptide 6, tamoxifen, clomiphene, and letrozole. So let's talk about what things he purchased. IGF-1, or insulin-like growth factor, is a hormone similar to insulin that has an anabolic effect in adults. Growth hormone release peptide 2 is a hormone-releasing peptide. It's an oral synthetic peptide drug used to assess growth hormone deficiency. It also increases levels of plasma growth hormone. GHRP6 is also a synthetic that stimulates the release of growth hormone, especially when administered with insulin. Tamoxifen is a selective estrogen receptor modulator that can be used to prevent and treat breast cancer, but it can also be used to increase blood flow, and it can also be used to treat or prevent gynecomastia, which is the abnormal enlargement of breast tissue in men due to hormonal imbalance. Clomiphene is used to treat infertility in women who do not ovulate. It's also used to treat male hypogonadism, which is diminished production of sex hormones in the testes by causing the body to produce more testosterone. It can also be used to prevent gynecomastia, which is again the abnormal enlargement of breast tissue in men due to hormonal imbalances. Letrozole is used for the treatment of hormonally responsive breast cancer after surgery. It's sometimes used for the treatment of gynecomastia. Again, although it's probably most effective if caught at an early stage, such as users of anabolic steroids. So in summary, Scott purchased 4 substances to increase growth hormones, 3 to combat gynecomastia, and 1 to treat hypogonadism. All those substances are prohibited at all times by the World Anti-Doping Code. During the investigation, Scott admitted to the possession of those items, and so USADA concluded that it was an intentional violation, and he's subject to a 4-year sanction, and also subject to forfeiture of the results that he obtained since the date of the first purchase. So all his results from all his competitions going back to 2014 gone, and a 4-year sanction beginning the date that he related to the violation. Next up, we have Ashley Kratzer. She's an American tennis player who is from Newport Beach, California. She's the 2017 USTA National Girls Champion and has a career-high World Tennis Association singles rating of 200. In January of 2020, Ashley Kratzer competed in the Newport Beach Oracle Challenge Series tournament and was selected for drug testing, and her sample tested positive for growth hormone release peptide 6, also known as GHRP6. The ITF provisionally suspended her, and she requested a hearing. In her hearing, Ashley Kratzer indicated that she suffers from severe blistering on her feet and heels, so much so that she bleeds through her shoes. And in one tournament that she participated in, the chair umpire had to call a medical stop to it because she had bled through her shoes onto the court. In April 2009, Ashley Kratzer traveled to Anning, China to compete in the Kunming Open tournament. She stayed at a 5-star resort so that she could practice on clay courts prior to the tournament. Her coach wasn't able to travel with her, so through the hotel, she contacted a local tennis pro so that she could have someone to train with prior to the tournament. That guy's name is Zhang, and he may or may not have been affiliated with the Chinese Tennis Federation. Ashley wasn't able to find that out for sure. In her practice there, she again suffered from the blistering on her feet, and Zhang, the tennis pro from China, offered her this sort of cream to treat that. Zhang told her that the cream was similar to Neosporin, but it was unlabeled, not in any kind of regular package thing, didn't have any ingredient list on it or anything. Ashley used it anyway, and it seemed to work for her well, and she continued to use it from April all the way up until the tournament in January. So when after she tested positive, she sent a number of her supplements to a laboratory for testing, including the remainder of the cream that she got from the Chinese tennis pro. And on laboratory testing, it found that GHRP6 was an active ingredient in it, not just a contaminant, but that was the main ingredient of it. So the first issue for the International Tennis Federation was to consider whether this was an intentional violation or an unintentional violation. Now, as I've talked about before, intentional as far as the World Anti-Doping Code has a slightly different meaning than what we might ordinarily think of what intentional means. According to the World Anti-Doping Code, intentional means the individual engaged in conduct knowing that there's a significant risk of the anti-doping rule violation and disregarded this risk. So we might think of that as reckless behavior, but according to the World Anti-Doping Code, that's what an intentional violation is. So the key things that the International Tennis Federation considered when making the decision whether it was an intentional violation or unintentional violation was the fact that Ashley Kratzer only met Zhang, the tennis pro, a few days before. The cream was unpackaged and unlabeled. She did not know or ascertain whether or not Zhang had any medical qualification. She did not confirm if Zhang was affiliated with the Chinese Tennis Federation, and China is a country that's criticized for its lack of transparency. Given those factors and the factor that the World Anti-Doping Code is strict liability and imposes a duty on each athlete to ensure that no prohibited substances enter their system, the ITF concluded that Ashley Kratzer's violation was an intentional violation, and she's subject to a 4-year ban. And so that's what they concluded. The last story to talk about is Flavia de Mello Oliveira Papperella. Flavia de Mello Oliveira Papperella is a Brazilian cyclist who lives in Castro Valley, California. She placed 7th in the 2016 Rio Olympics in the road race. In 2019, Papperella was sanctioned for 6 months by the Brazilian Anti-Doping Association for testing positive for hegemonamine. In March of 2020, Papperella tested positive for vilanterol during an in-competition test at the Tour of the Southern Highlands. Vilanterol is a long-lasting beta-2 adrenoreceptor agonist. It's prescribed for the treatment of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Trelegy Ellipta is one of the inhalers containing vilanterol. After being notified of the positive test, Papperella applied for a retroactive therapeutic use exemption, or a TUE. In February of 2020, because she was diagnosed with severe and acute allergies and uncontrolled asthma and was prescribed Trelegy, the medication that contains the vilanterol. So USADA looked at this and they approved the prospective TUE, but not the retroactive TUE that she was requesting, because she didn't meet their criteria for a retroactive TUE. In order to do that, you would have to show that you had no opportunity to request the therapeutic use exemption and did so in a timely manner. Here, there wasn't any attempt to request the TUE until after she tested positive. So, based on that, USADA sanctioned her for 6 months, which they said is the minimum for a second violation. However, I think USADA is wrong in that. Actually, the framework for a second violation is you're supposed to sanction the individual for the greater of, and you have 3 choices. 1, 6 months. 2, the sum of the violation for the first offense plus the violation for the second offense, or 3, double the second offense. So this could have been a 4-year sanction doubled to 8 months if the USADA would have decided that, but that's not what they did. But remember, I also mentioned that this is an athlete that was able to get a reduced and eliminated sanction. And that's because effective January 1 of 2021, the new World Anti-Doping Code goes into effect. Under the new rules, vilanterol, when used in accordance under a doctor's prescription and in accordance with the manufacturer's direction, that's no longer a anti-doping rule violation. And so in January, Papperella requested from the USADA a reduction or termination of her sanction, and the USADA agreed with that because she was using the vilanterol pursuant to a doctor's prescription and in accordance with the manufacturer's recommendation. And so effective in January 2021, USADA ended her sanction. So those are all the stories that I have for today. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with those and what you think about that. As always, if you enjoy these episodes and want to support these efforts in pursuing clean sport, please like this video and subscribe to get more notifications. There should be more stories coming out next week.